This program is brought to you by Apply Mortgages.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Monday Night Pool. It's the Masters on Free Sports, week 14 of the competition. We're into our final few sets of players before we head into that raucous last 16 round. Simon, with me as ever. This is a great group, and we say that a lot, but this is one of the few groups where we can actually say in round one, it's world champion versus world champion. But as a foursome, what a setup.
Yeah, another great week. I say it every single time when we open the show that it's another great lineup, but it really is another great lineup. For me, headlined, of course, by the current world champion. When the draw was made, he was one of the first names I looked for to see when he was playing and who he was up against, because he's one of the best players to watch in the world.
Yeah, cannot wait for that one. Before we get going properly, though, if you are new round here to the Masters, or indeed to the sport in general, this is everything that you need to know. We've got you covered. Take a look at this. The Ultimate Pool Masters brings together the best players around and puts them to the ultimate test. 64 players start with 16 groups of 4. Each night, 4 players will be featured with 2 semi-finals and a final, with 1 player advancing through the group into the next stage. Once we're through to the last 16, we'll have 4 more 4-to-1 format nights, leaving us ultimately with our final 4. Then, on finals night, we have 2 semi-finals and our grand final to crown the winner. The matches themselves are set to a 50-minute match clock. It's a race to 8 frames or 0 on the clock, whichever comes first. A 45-second shot clock is in operation, with the final 10 minutes introducing a 15-second shot clock, where only the quick thinking will survive. If a match is tied as the clock runs out, a 6-red shootout will decide the winner. We're playing international 8-ball rules, so a foul introduces cue ball in hand for your opponent, but the basic premise remains the same. Pick a colour set, pot your balls, then pot the 8-ball. There's £20,000 in the prize pot, and at the end of it all, the winner will pocket 10 grand, a worthy prize for a marathon event. Welcome to the Ultimate Pool Masters. First match of the night, Berrada against Monaghan. What a great night. There they are in the arena. They are ready to go. A 4-man lineup as good as any in the groups that we've seen so far in the Masters. A total unknown coming into the tournament in Berrada against Monaghan, and then 2 of relative greats, in the sport in the last sort of 10 years or so. But this is our first match. Berrada versus Monaghan. We were speaking to both earlier. Kareem's a really lovely fella. Lives in London now. Originally from Casablanca, and we'll talk a little bit through this match, I'm sure, Simon, about the passion for the sport in that specific little corner of North Africa. But it is a really incredible thing, actually, because it's almost a bit of a badly kept secret, isn't it? Because if you didn't know, you'd have no idea. But those who are involved in the pool world, who know a little bit about it, know that Morocco is a real hub for the sport.
Yeah, it really is. Even though I kind of knew that, but going out there, but when I actually did go out there for an event, getting to see it firsthand, seeing the passion there is out there, the way that the pool clubs are absolutely full all day, all night long, it's absolutely brilliant to see out there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Kareem play tonight and see what he's got. But yeah, definitely a lot of passion for him back home.
So Keane going in off the break means cue ball in hand behind the baulk line for Berrada, and he's just been caught out a little bit by the shot clock there.
Foul.
So much so, he's going to turn the table back over.
Ball in hand.
That's a sloppy one if you're Kareem, isn't it? A real let-off for Keane, who hit a fantastic break, only to be denied the first opportunity by going in off it. And now it's, it's unbelievable let-off, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a big let off there for Cian. A little bit sloppy for Karim. You have to say it's first time he's probably played. Well, it's definitely the first time he's played an Ultimate Ball event, and getting used to the shot clock is something we're going to have to keep an eye on with him. The first go at the table. And to be honest, the shot that you are going to need the most thought about is your opening shot, especially when you've got cue ball in hand. Plenty to think about, and you only have your 45 seconds to do so. So it'll be interesting to sort of keep an eye on that as we go through the match. But what it has done is really just handed Cian a perfect opportunity to get his cue arm going. Needs to play a careful positional shot here, but plenty of room. Just needs to come past this red nearest his hand. He's gone too far. I don't think this 8-ball actually goes in the right centre. Maybe sneaks in. If it doesn't, it's a very careless positional shot from Cian, because he had plenty of room just to come across and leave the 8-ball into the left centre. Oh, he's playing the double.
Hasn't he played that well? Hasn't he played that well? It's a super recovery from Cian Monaghan. An excellent start for the youngster from Radcliffe. It's a bit of a hub for the game. When we talk about Morocco, that particular part of North Manchester is a real little hub. I know Simon Fitzsimmons is from there. A lot of them play JJ Falls play Savannah's up in that part of the world. Brilliant area for 8-ball. And Cian Monaghan, the latest of the production line there, and I mean the latest. He is barely a man. He's still just about 18, 19, and what an opportunity this is for him. He's played in some big events, and this is his biggest one so far there.
Yeah, it is. We've seen him on Free Sports before. We've seen him in the shootouts. He made it through to the semi-finals, I think, in the Milton Keynes event. But he has actually played in 3 shootouts, so he's had experience on TV and in this sort of one-table setup. And he's actually, we don't have much of a crowd for this event, but when we saw him in the shootouts where we did have a big crowd, the way he worked with that crowd and the way he sort of almost rose to the occasion was fantastic to see. He's very much an entertainer and loves that big stage. That's a cracking opening break for Karim, though. Really hit that solid.
Yeah, caught those beautifully, didn't he? And he'll be really wanting to get off to a good start in this visit because of how he let Cian off the hook in that first. Where's the white ball?
Foul.
Tough school.
Yeah, that's very similar to the opening frame, actually. A little bit of a careless one, allowing that cue ball just to run loose. So it's a free table still, because that was with his first shot. So Cian has the opportunity to go reds or yellows. Cue ball anywhere on the table, cue ball in hand. And it's another great opportunity here for Cian.
Red ball's in play.
Just has to work his way around the table, very similar to the first opportunity. He's worked these out nicely in terms of his pattern. Can just roll these all through and should leave himself a fairly simple 8-ball. Cian's a very, very confident player, capable of the big shot, but the more he plays, the more he experiences tournament play, the better his patterns get and the more he improves and the less he needs those big shots.
And a big opportunity for him tonight, really is. It's a great opportunity for both these gentlemen, of course. Cian goes 2-0 up, a great start for the youngster. We've seen a little bit of a tough start for quite a few of our youngsters that have come into this competition, haven't we? I'm thinking, the likes of Ryan Davis, Morgan McInnes. They've arrived and they've just struggled to get going a little bit and just almost look a little bit like deer in the headlights. But with Cian having that experience of playing in the shootout competitions, not just the bright TV lights, but a bit of a crowd and a bit of an atmosphere there as well, it should just mean that he's not too fazed by this occasion.
No, I don't think he's not that way. I think he he really rises to the occasion. He really does want to be out there and entertain people. Likes putting on a show.
Frame.
Plays a lot of money matches where there's always big crowds and it's very
Monaghan to break.
vocal. And he's always had a lot of support and a lot of people cheering him on. So I think it's something he thrives on, if anything. And he's sort of been handed a really nice opening into this match as well. A couple of nice, easy chances for him to get going.
I'll tell you what, considering he barely even gets down on his break, and look at this, it's almost a lazy action, isn't it? The split that he gets from it is incredible.
Yeah, the one thing I like with that shot is the fact that, yes, he doesn't get right down on it, but sometimes that just allows you to be a bit freer and get through the cue ball a little bit better for a break shot. But when you watch that replay, you can see that he keeps his head absolutely perfectly still, allows him to get that perfect strike on the break and still get the quality of contact he needs to spread him far and wide. So
yeah, pure timing, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's great.
Really, really impressive. Now then, these Reds just needs to pick his line here because they've all got homes. This is the key shot getting up to the top of the table. Imagine the red close to the right centre pocket will be his last ball. Easy enough to land on the 8 ball from there. But he might just have a little bit of work to do with his next shot here.
Yeah, I think his problem, I think he was kind of thinking the same way as you, but the yellow to its left-hand side stops you from being able to get perfectly on that red. So he's possibly he's definitely thinking about getting out of the way early now. It does mean he needs a nice angle to get back across for the 8 ball. So this is, out of the 3 chances he's had, this is the hardest one of the 3, but it's still very doable. That's pretty good. I think he can screw this one back across comfortably enough. He worked this out really nicely.
Hasn't he just? Looks so assured for one so young, does Cian Monaghan. An excellent start.
Frame.
And the young man from Manchester. Super start for Cian Monaghan. Here he is, 19, he's not far off turning 20. A shootout semi-finalist, as you mentioned, and a bit of a prolific youth career actually. Under-18 European doubles champion a couple of years ago, as well as an under-15 Nations Cup singles winner, which is probably not far off being the biggest thing you can win at that age.
Yeah, and I think a bit of an insight into his mindset actually is the fact that now he's 19 and he's competing, in these bigger events. He almost dismisses those titles. That was in his youth. That was a previous sort of almost career for him. He's now moved on, so he kind of almost, has a great youth career, but he's now, moving on to the next stage.
Kareem needs a good break here. Needs to find a way back into this match. It's another great hit. He avoids getting kicked in off. He's got a little bit of a tricky lie though upon first inspection. This is, your typical front ball break. Cues across it ever so slightly. That's why the cue ball went across to the side of the table there. Wasn't quite as pure a hit as his first, but he's at the table. And doesn't he want his first shot to be better than his first shot in the last visit that he had?
Red ball's in play.
Well, he's up and running for the first time. Previous couple of chances he's had, he's gone fouled very, very quickly with his first shot. It's not a good lay of the table, though, as you've already said. When you've made a couple of mistakes, as he has, all of a sudden it gets harder for you. 3-0 down, and you want a nice open chance, similar to the ones that Cian has taken out, and he's got a right mess on his hands. Problems with 3 reds.
That's a lovely shot.
Yeah, it probably solves 2 of them, actually. I think the one does go into the right centre, and the other one does go to the corner. Yeah, you can see that from the overhead. So that's opened up 2. And if he can work a way to potentially play the one into the centre pocket off the yellow, it just could nudge things open. Although it's difficult to do it from this shot here. Yeah, it was hard to play that shot when you're cutting it back to a blind angle. May have been better to try and clip the one into the other centre pocket and work back to that angle. But he could still play
necessarily the end of the world. He's still got a route here. It's just not easy.
Yeah, he could play the shot now if he wanted to. So clip the one he's nearest to off the yellow into the right centre pocket. The cue ball go up the table, but you should be on the red to the right centre. It's a complete miscue,
Foul.
and that's going to be a foul for not hitting a cushion.
Ball in hand. Time running.
A total miscue there. Just wonder if he's almost pulled out the shot as he was playing it. I'm speaking from very personal experience there.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to nip it a little bit, like really trying to get quick action on the cue ball and just mistimed his shot completely. But, I mean, that's a tough start for him. First 3 visits to the table, 3 fouls given up, and he's playing a player that we've already seen is in really nice form.
With that first shot, opens up just about everything as well.
Important times here for Keane. I know that he's got off to a good start here, but we've seen players get off to this good start before. They've made a mistake and let their opponent back into the match, and all of a sudden they're having to work hard. Keane's got an opportunity here to get himself 4-0 up and on his break, and he's just dished his last frame. He could be 4 or 5-0 up very, very quickly, and the match would be essentially over.
Wobbled ever so slightly, but used his angles well there, just to bring the cue ball back across.
If he takes the one nearest that bottom right-hand corner pocket, then he just wants to try and come back to middle of the table. He'd be on a choice of 3. He's not comfortable with the shot because he's looking for an alternative, but I think it's the right shot in terms of completing the clearance or making the clearance easy. Didn't really
take
want that contact though. But it's not the worst result, but he would have just loved to come past that yellow. If he takes the one to the top right corner, he's got to be careful that he doesn't cannon into the yellow on the left-hand side. The angle will be going close to it. Yeah, he's going too close to it.
Now he might be in a little bit of trouble. Can he get... I think he can get through to this yellow at the bottom of the table, but getting on that last yellow will be tricky. He's actually absolutely fine on it.
Yeah, just hold the white and accept a tough yellow. Where the 8-ball is, he just has to not make the pot here. As long as he slides past that red in the middle of the table, he'll have a shot on the 8-ball. So you can almost put all your concentration onto the pot and not worry too much about getting perfect on that 8-ball. Just give yourself a shot. Yeah, beautifully done. That is a really nice shot.
Yeah, that'll do it. This for 4-0 in no time at all. Never in doubt, was it? Super start
Frame.
from Cian Monaghan, and Karim Berrada really has his work cut out now. The man from Morocco lives in London at the moment, originally from Casablanca. Moroccan international who has gone as far as the last 4 in the Moroccan national competitions. I was chatting to him earlier and he was buzzing to be here. Really, really nice fella. And it was a late notice call up, only about a week's notice I think he had. He said he's not practiced anywhere near as much as he would have liked because he's a man who's got other interests. He owns a business that he puts a lot of time into, I know. And
Cian Monaghan to break.
he's had a week's notice. He's tried to put in some time and get himself up there. But it's the same for a lot of players at this stage as we sort of come out of the COVID situation. Just rediscovering that form that they had maybe 18 months ago isn't quite as easy as they'd like it to be, as Cian hits another monster break.
Yeah, it's really tough, especially, as you say, with no real practice, no real form coming in, and he got off to such a tough start with those 3 consecutive fouled visits, and now you're up against it, and it will feel a long way back here for Karim, but we have seen turnarounds before, and you just have to wait for your next opportunity and try and take it, but it may well not be until he's 5-0 down, because that is a brilliant break from Cian, probably his best so far. And
he's breaking a dream.
Yeah, you see how much he got that 8-ball in motion as well. Watch out for a golden break from him tonight.
Don't care who you are, really. You've got any ability to pot a ball. If you can come to a table set like that after a break, you're odds on to make it. And never mind if you're as talented a player as young Cian Monaghan is.
Yeah, sometimes they do open up nicely for you and you don't have to work too hard. Sometimes you've got problems all over the table, but Cian's broken so well so far that he's been getting these chances where it is open. It is then just about picking that route.
Looks dangerous. He'll be competing in the Ultimate Pool Challengers Series later on this year in about 5-6 weeks. I think the first event is not long away. In fact, I think it's about a month actually, start of August. 128-man competition. He's got his name in, and he'll be one of the starlights in that one. You can count on that.
Frame.
It's a great opportunity for players like Cian to get themselves onto TV. Those events will be televised.
Ah, Steve Singh's in the house. He's with John Rowe there on his left. Good to see Steve. He was competing in this tournament. Oh, I can't remember which week it was. Early on, though, wasn't it? It was in that second quarter of the draw, I believe it was. Feels like a long time ago now, but good to see him back watching some of this excellent 8-ball.
Frame 6.
Looked like he was giving John a little bit of advice on what to expect out there tonight.
Kareem would dearly love a good chance off this break. Well, when it rains, it pours, doesn't it? That's a brilliant connection. He's just not been rewarded. That's a great break.
I think for me it's his best break so far, and he makes nothing. You look at the way he parks the cue ball and nothing down. This time, Cian's going to have to work a little bit harder. Problem at the top of the table if he goes reds or yellows. It looks like he's eyeing up the reds, but that red and yellow together at the top is going to be a problem for him. Does he have the angle to go into it now? Looks a little straight. Maybe he can get into the yellow, but has to guard against that double kiss that won't open it up if he does try that.
It's not often we see the spider on a 7x4 table.
Yeah, so I was going to say it's even harder off the spider.
White parks itself up, and Cian Monaghan might well be back in business here.
Can he play this red off the yellow? If he can't get into the red and yellow at the top, it would be a tough shot, but it's on. That's what he's tried.
Now then, Kareem, this is a big chance. Cian frustrated as that would have put him 6-0 in front. That was really the key to unlocking the frame. Couldn't quite make it work. These yellows are all there now for Kareem. Just feel like if one goes, he'll just start to settle. Oh, where's that white ball slow up?
Foul. Ball in hand. Time running.
Oh, Kareem can't believe it. Don't think we can.
He's cued straight across this. That had a huge amount of side on it. He was trying to come back out into the middle of the table, and he's cued across it completely. I was about to say, I think Cian's been a touch, or not, I wouldn't say unfortunately, he missed the shot he was trying to take on, but the red didn't even stay over the pocket and opened up the pocket for Kareem. But unfortunately, that foul has just turned the table straight back over, and Cian needs to be ruthless here and mop these ones up and get that 6-0 lead.
It's been a story of the foul count, really, hasn't it, for Kareem Berrada? Cian's played brilliantly, of course, but he's been handed, I think, 3 opportunities right off the back of Kareem Berrada fouls, which have just helped him get a lead, which looks like it's going to be a 6-frame cushion.
Yeah, really allowed him to ease into the match. Go back to that first frame of the match, and it was Kareem that had the first opportunity, and one that looked, I wouldn't say routine, nothing's routine when you're out there playing in an event like this, but it was certainly one that I think Kareem would have expected to take out, and he fouled his first shot, and Keane was the player that was able to get up and running and hasn't looked back, and it's gone from bad to worse on the other side of the table. Difficult position.
Scott Gillespie's in the house, eyeing up his potential opponent later on.
I was about to say that Keane left himself slightly awkward as we had that look at Scott, but he's able to just drop it in and leave a tougher pot on this last red. Plenty of open table for the 8-ball, so made it look fairly simple.
(6-0), Keane Monaghan.
Frame.
He's really rolling here. A tremendous start for the young man from Manchester. Monaghan goes 6 in front. We'll be back with this one when we come back. Welcome back to the Ultimate Pool Masters, and so far it is a master, barely even a mister, in Kieran Monaghan, who is making Kareem Berrada something of his best here. This has been a really impressive performance from Kieran Monaghan. 6-0 up, 4 fouls, the real story of this match so far, isn't it? That key stat at the bottom. Kareem, in some senses, hasn't done an awful lot wrong. The 4 fouls, some of them have been total user error, some of them have been lack of concentration, some of them have been forgivable, some of them not.
Yeah, I think sometimes you get put in a snooker and it's a difficult out, or you're trying to make something happen. But for me, those 4 fouls, a little bit careless. One of them was a time foul where he just wasn't quite aware of how long he had left, and then a couple of really careless in-offs. Yes, I think Keane's played fantastic. He's done everything he needed to do till this point, but he has been helped out by Kareem, and he's in a very dominant position from here.
It's another good hit from Keane, not quite as smooth as his last one. You can just see there, actually, the slow motion showed it beautifully. Jumped the white a little, which meant the contact wasn't quite ideal. Almost took the white off the table, which I think we've seen so far in this tournament. Now's a good chance for Kareem. If it is to happen, and it would be, come back of the tournament by a long way. If it is to happen, it has to happen now. It's a good first shot.
Well, the one good thing he's got on his side is at least he has the time. He's still got 28 minutes left, still plenty of time if he wants it to get back in, or he needs it to get back into the match. But it's just the way we've seen it go so far. It would be a surprise, but any comeback needs to start somewhere, and it really does need to start here. All the Reds have homes, all the Reds have pockets, but the 8-ball is a problem. Once the Reds are out the way, potentially a double, but if it's welded to the cushion, just makes that double a little bit trickier.
That's a miss, which well might be that for Kareem Berrada. Keane Monaghan with a great chance now to make this 7. And I can't imagine he's going to pass up this opportunity.
No, he's done really well with the balls and open play. A couple of times he's had to work things out. He's done it really, really well. Only really made one mistake for me, and that was when he was trying to open up a problem ball, playing a ball off a ball. Other than that, he's done really, really well. Sometimes you can only do what's been asked of you, and that's what he's done so well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Looked really assured, hasn't he?
Good choice of last ball as well. Leave plenty of angle on it. You can just drift up towards that 8-ball.
And sometimes as well, I think Keane deserves a little bit of credit here. How many times do you see it that when one player doesn't really bring his level, just struggles, it can quite often bring the other one down as well. Keane's actually done very well to keep the sort of mentality about him. Not let that affect him. Just play his game. He's playing well. Doesn't need to worry about it. And actually, he's done brilliantly.
Yeah, that's it. You can only do what's asked of you, and don't get distracted by what your opponent's doing.
Sounds so simple, but how often do we see it?
Yeah, and normally, one player starts playing well, the other will, and one player drags the other one down. But that's not happened on this case. Brilliant.
Yeah, great pot as well from Keir Monaghan. He really does look impressive tonight. 7-zip to him. Match clock has stopped, by the way, just on our screen. Can tell you it's been kept within the arena okay. On to about the 26-minute mark, I am being told. But one suspects we won't need to go too tight to the wire in terms of time in this match.
Frame 8. Karim Berrada to break, trailing 7 frames to 0.
Be good to see Karim get a good opportunity here and try and get that frame on the board. Showcase what he can do. That was his best break so far for me. Really parked the cue ball well. Spread him far and wide, giving himself an opportunity.
Broken really well tonight. That's such a weird quirk. And I think you're seeing here a top talent at one stage just really struggling to rediscover his form in the harshest possible arena to try and do that.
Yellow balls in play.
There's no hiding place in a tournament like this. The bright lights are on you. And he will know there's a little bit of reception for this back home as well. Whilst we're on Free Sports in the UK, this will have some eyes on it in his home nation, I can tell you.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's coming onto a table like this as well. Oh, it's not another foul, is it? Oh, it is. This time you can forgive him a little bit more. He was actually just trying to play a cannon on the red and yellow in the middle of the table and just missed them. Missed them by a few inches, actually, and I think a little bit unfortunate to go in off. I was just going to say there, the table plays, it's a very responsive and very reactive cloth out there, and unless you've had a huge amount of table time or you haven't been playing much, it can be a tough one to adjust to. Karim really hasn't got to grips with it at all.
Kieran looks very at home. He really does. And if he can put this sort of level out, he'll be more than a match for either one of John Rowe or Scott Gillespie. Doesn't matter how good they are, the titles they've won in their careers, and they have been extensive. This young man on this form is match for anyone.
I think the one thing Kean knows is the fact that whoever he gets to play in tonight's final, assuming Kean does go on to win, whoever he gets to play, he's going to get tested an awful lot more. He's going to have a lot more coming back at him from the other side of the table, and it's
absolutely.
It's a different game when if a mistake is going to get punished, it puts more pressure on you and you're on your chance, and that can really affect how you go about some finishes. It sounds easy just to say forget about that, you just play the table, but it's not as easy as that to put into practice.
And certainly it becomes more difficult the less experienced, the younger that you are as well. Those who've been in the game years and years, who've got, a decade plus experience at the top level, they just become used to it. Sometimes that's just how the game goes. And they can recover quicker and they can recover better. It's not always that simple for the players who are just starting to come through. It's a part of the game that can only be learnt through experience. Keir Monaghan then for an 8-0 victory. What a superb performance from the young man from Manchester. Karim Berrada departs the Ultimate Pool Masters What an impressive performance by that young man. Story of the match is on the bottom line for me in terms of the fouls. Cian Monaghan, superb. Was breaking really well, clearing really well. 2 finishes off his own break. Excellent in open table. But when he didn't have to be, he was afforded those opportunities. 5 fouls in the match is an awful lot.
Yeah, and it set the tone for the match as well. I think Karim very early in the match, a couple of time foul with his first visit, and then first few frames he fouled in, and it just made it nice and comfortable start for Cian to get into the match. Cian said thank you very much, and once he was up and running, there was no stopping him, and then it's just a tough way back for Karim, and he wasn't able to get into the match at all. Very tough one for him, but Cian moves on.
He certainly does, and he'll face off against either one of the former or the current world champion. A great match in prospect when we come back as John Rowe takes on Scott Gillespie. That is next. Welcome back to the Ultimate Pool Masters here on Free Sports. We are already at 1 game down. A little check of the watch tells us we've not been on air very long, but Cian Monaghan was a man on a mission tonight. He has already made it through to tonight's final with an 8-0 victory over Karim Berrada. Our next match, though, Simon, is one that I am very, very much looking forward to. I have been for the last 14 weeks. As soon as this draw was made, this is one of the ties of the round for me. John Rowe against Scott Gillespie. Before we get into the arena, let's preview this one a little bit. We're talking about the current world champion here, held that title since 2018. We were laughing and joking earlier. It might be the longest reigning world champion ever, based on COVID and whatnot, but against the former world champion WPF in John Rowe, who we saw in the Champions League, put up a performance that just told us that he was starting to rediscover some of his best form, and this could be a real banger.
Yeah, 2 guys that know what it's like to get to the very top of the game. You have to say, going into COVID, Scott was absolutely flying, winning titles, was the current world champion, was the current European champion, was winning professional titles, was winning titles all over the place, Scottish champion, Scottish titles. He really was one of the guys to watch, one of the top guys in the game. Obviously, COVID has slowed that down. He hasn't played much. I think he played his first tournament just a few days ago in 16, 17 months. So it's going to be interesting to see what his form's like. But he is up against a former world champion in John Rowe, a guy who, he won it a few years previous, I think 2012, I think it was off the top of my head. And but we did see glimpses from him in the previous event here on Free Sports. He showed some really nice touches. His break was absolutely huge. So this could be an absolutely cracking match.
You sold it to me. Cannot wait for this one. It's seconds away. It's John Rowe against Scott. Yes, please. What a match this is lined up next for you on the slate. Scott Gillespie against John Rowe. Oh, I cannot wait for this one. Both players bring their A game. Could be one of the matches of the tournament. Scott Gillespie, a super player. So little tournament practice there that he forgot he needed his break cue to bring with him. But Simon was absolutely correct that when we last saw Scott on the big stage, absolutely the best player in the world at the time for me. And he's hit a monster break, but he's not been rewarded with a ball. And that's the one thing that you sort of notice with Scott Gillespie. He's a really dominating player. The way that he plays, it feels like you're almost being beaten up, doesn't it? His break's big, he's clinical in tight situations. In open table, you might as well rack them up the next ball. He is a really domineering player. Yeah,
absolutely. The impression he gives you when you're on the table against him, it's like he owns the table. He really is a beast out there. He's going to take anything that comes his way. If you manage to get yourself ahead of him, then that's almost when he's at his most dangerous, because he never gives up. He's never going to make it easy for you. He's so so dominant out there. And actually, you almost see the best of him when he's absolutely up against it, when he almost pots himself into trouble and he has to come up with something special. You're going to see some pretty special shot making from him.
Well, John Rowe will be disappointed with that, because that wasn't as difficult a shot as he just made it. It was a clever idea, actually, using the double to play the plant at the top left corner. But what an opportunity it was. You'd have expected to make some kind of contact, and any contact you'd have thought would have made the pot available to him. Now then, he turns the table over to Scott Gillespie.
Well,
this is a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the exact opposite of the start we had with Keane's opportunities. All Keane's opportunities early on were fairly open, and you just had to map out good routes. This one is the exact opposite. Big congested table right at the top of the table there. You know, Scott's decided to take yellows, but and I'm going to. You've got to be careful when you're playing. You say this about someone like Scott, but I can't see a finish out there for him. There's problems all over the table.
Yeah, this is tough. I think the yellows that are together plant, which helps. This is an awkward shot though into the middle. Has he got the pace? He didn't quite have the line. He did have the pace though. It did just rest on the cushion, so it's not a foul. That was a really tricky pot. Looking in fine fettle is Scott Gillespie. Speaking to him out, he's always in such good spirits, and he's in particularly good spirits. Got a wedding on the horizon, back end of September. Bridesmaid Melanie will be watching at home tonight, as John can't quite find the top corner. So then, and a slightly inauspicious start from our two star names tonight.
Yeah, we've built this one up quite big, and all of a sudden, it's been a scrappy opening couple of chances for these two guys out there. No attempt at the pot this time from Scott. He left that right on the jaw with no way of potting it, especially from the angle he was on, into that centre pocket. So just the safety. Not sure he's left much on. Don't know if he can see the plant to the top left. I don't think he can. Might be looking just
play it off the red.
I think he was just trying to get that red into the corner pocket, and he's got that one a little bit wrong, but he has tied up a couple of yellows at the top, so it's half a job done there for John.
There wasn't a particularly obvious finish for Scott at the start of this frame, really, on yellows. There's even less of one now. See Steve Singh there in the corner of John Rowe. The ringer with the singer. Now Scott potting that tells me he fancies it, which is a big surprise. How can he find a finish here?
Yeah, there's problems here for him. It's very difficult, even if you played a cannon into those two reds at the top, to open them up, because they're blocked off both ways. Could potentially look at playing a skill shot to the top left, which looks like what he's looking at.
There's a very interested observer. We'll hear from Kieran Monaghan pretty soon.
So I think he's gearing himself up here for the skill shot. So yellow onto red, wants the yellow to go in as well, and he's left himself the angle just to drift on to the yellow at the top of the table, so that he can play the yellow at the top into the same pocket. Good thinking here.
Shot!
And great execution. Just if he's left himself maybe just a fraction straight, has he got enough angle just to punch this one out and give himself some sort of shot on his last yellow?
I think he's got something.
Yeah, he might just have enough just to, if he tops this one through, yeah, you can see where he's pointing his cue. He can get somewhere near the break line.
This would be a hell of a finish.
Looks fairly natural if he cuts this into the centre pocket. Cue ball's not going to go into the 8 ball. It should just drift up past it. this is what Scott Gillespie does, or he's just left himself awkward. Just about to say he makes the difficult look easy.
This is not easy now.
But yeah, this is a very tricky 8-ball to complete what would be a fantastic opening clearance.
Rather you than me, Scott. This for 1-0 either way, because if he misses this frame is a sitting duck for John Rowe. Pressure pot. That's why he's the reigning world champion. What a finish. What a finish that is.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible from Scott Gillespie. As I was saying before, he makes the difficult look easy. He's made that very, very difficult clearance there look very, very simple. Clever thought patterns around the table to leave himself the skill shot, knowing that would open up the only other bad ball on the table, and then having the ability to execute it. So fantastic from Scott, and he is up and running. Well, John had a couple of opportunities in that frame himself. It wasn't none were that inviting, but he did miss a couple of pots that we didn't expect him to. So he'll be looking for a big break here to get himself up and running.
Second frame, John Rowe to break.
Well, Stephen Jameson's just popped out of the commentary box while we watch John Rowe break here. He's going to have a few words with Cian Monaghan.
I certainly am. Cian, a big congratulations. That was just about the quickest victory we've seen in the entire tournament. 8-0, that must feel pretty pleasing to come back with such a good performance like that.
Yeah, I'm happy with it, to be honest, yeah. First frame, I think he forgot his cue and time foul, so managed to take that and then settled in nicely, so just went my way.
It was one of those where it was, you seem to get given a lot of opportunities, but you also seem to make your opportunities count as well, an open table, very few mistakes from you in the match. It's been a long time since I've seen too many people play tournament play, but you seem to be pretty sharp out there. You've managed to get your practice in at all?
No, I didn't play for a long time, and then just been in a tournament this weekend, so that's probably helped, just starting to play matches again, but yeah, I'm happy the way I'm playing.
You've got a great matchup later on, no matter who you end up playing, whether it be John Rowe or Scott Gillespie. I was talking to earlier, you don't really consider names, as it were, do you? They're just next on the hit list, aren't they?
I don't think you can you? If you want to win, you've just got to try and just forget about who you're playing and just play the balls.
Play like that, you'll have every chance in the world. Best luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good attitude to have. Doesn't matter who you're playing, if you're the player at the table, you're taking your opportunities. There's very little your opponent can do. So Cian will be up against one of these two current and former world champion. Fantastic break from John. And he's given himself a good opportunity to respond, but he has work left to do. That 8-ball on the left-hand side, difficult to land nicely on it. Yellow shouldn't be too much of a bother from where he is at the moment.
For those wondering about the slightly raspy sounding Cian Monaghan, by the way, nothing to worry about in an illness or indeed a COVID sense. I was reliably informed that he rather enjoyed the England versus Ukraine match at the weekend and is still just about getting his voice back, weren't we all?
Yeah, I think there'll be a few across the country, very similar position.
Just don't mention it to Scott. Now, is John Rowe snooking himself there, or is he okay to get through to this yellow over the middle? I think he is.
Yeah, that's a decent shot, actually, a good choice of shot. Okay, he would have liked it to open up a fraction more, but he's left himself in a position where at least he has access to this 8-ball now. Doesn't want to leave himself straight, and he hasn't. Lovely little angle just to stun across the table, and there's more room there than it really looks.
After a little bit of a tricky start for both players. It's just starting to become the match that we hoped it would be, isn't it? Potential for two great finishes back to back, one each, if John Rowe can nail this 8-ball. Never in doubt, was it? Here we go.
Frame.
The match that we hoped it would be. John Rowe, the 41-year-old from Peterborough. As we've mentioned a few times tonight, he was the world champion back in 2012. He's also been a national amateur champion as well. Won a Champion of Champions event, sort of mid-2000s, I think it was. I think that was a Sky Sports event, if I remember rightly. One that he was very proud to win. Been playing the game for years, dropped in and out at times. We saw him in the Champions League, Simon, and what was unique about that event is each player played 3 games on their night, and the performance level from John, from the first couple of frames of game 1 to the last couple of frames in game 3, was such an unbelievable rise. He ended up not leaving himself enough real room to qualify because his first 2 performances weren't quite there. But the way that he was playing in match 3 was some of the best ball we saw in the entire tournament.
Yeah, well, I was going back through it. You know, you look back through the events as these players come up for the next one, and it was incredible, actually. I think John probably played as well as anybody that didn't make it through their group stages. He actually was in a really tough group with Neil Raybone, Jordan Shepherd and Brian Halcrow, and he was actually able to win 2 of his matches, but he was always chasing it because he lost his opening match to Neil Raybone. It was an incredibly tight match. I think it came down to 1 shot. I think it was a double that John missed, and that allowed Neil to win a frame, to go 3-2 ahead instead of the other way around. And ultimately, the whole night hinged on that 1 shot because he took care of business with Brian and Jordan very, very quickly.
Yellow ball's in play.
I think Scott will be pretty pleased with that. 8 ball now has a home in the left centre. I think the yellow closest to it now drops in as well, although it's tough to land on. Again, despite a pretty decent break, he wasn't really rewarded with a particularly easy lie here.
Yeah, that yellow just below the 8 ball, as you say, that's tricky. Yeah, that's why he's moved it again.
Braver man than me.
Yeah,
he knew he was going into that 8 ball.
Yeah, there was always a chance of moving that 8 ball close towards the pocket, but he's taken that risk and he's been rewarded because what a leave he's given himself. Now all the yellows go. The 8 ball, is a very simple one if and when he gets there. Quite a big margin of error as well for this next shot. The yellow next to the red in the break area, it does actually go to that top right, I believe.
John Rowe forced to sit and watch for the time being, but both players knew they'd have to do a fair bit of that tonight. No, John's had the chance to practice with Carl Morris in recent weeks. Both of them good mates, both of them fantastic players as well. Not a bad practice partner if you can get it.
Yeah, just a couple of world champions practicing with each other.
And Carl looked like dynamite when he was part of our show earlier on in the tournament as well. Eventually losing out to a really quite brilliant Rob Chilton performance. Scott looks on it, doesn't he? He looks really, really on it. That was not an easy clearance, but he's done what he does best in making difficult, tricky clearances look like they're the easiest thing in the world. He's so talented at that. 2-1. He goes into the leads. The 35-year-old from Larkhall, just outside of Glasgow. Big Glasgow Rangers fan is Scott Gillespie. He's the Black Ball International World Champion in 2018. That a biannual event, so the 2021 wasn't run due to the obvious reasons. He's the reigning European champion as well. It's a 2-time Supreme Series winner, and that in some ways is more impressive than the 2 titles that sit above that on that graphic, because whilst the titles themselves of World Champion and European Champion, I think they mean the most to Scott, without any question. I know he's very proud of those 2 titles. But in terms of actually winning the tournaments, to win 2 Supreme Series, that is as good as winning any championship in the world. Yeah,
absolutely. He was those Supreme Series events were absolutely stacked. It was a who's who of the pool world. And I was thinking about this week. There's been very few tournaments, if any, in my time in the pool world where we've seen all the top players come together and compete in one event.
Black Ball World Rules, it didn't matter. They were all there.
Yeah, and that was one event that got as close as we've seen, where everyone sort of come together. There was a couple of people not, but just about everyone came together. And Scott, to win 2 out of 4, as it was, I think he was in the in the grand final. I think he lost in the semi-final, so there's 5 events in that series, and he won 2 of them. Ended up losing out to Liam Dunster in the semi-finals of the grand final. But yeah, brilliant stuff from Scott, and great titles to win.
And that graphic didn't even begin to look at his myriad other titles. Multiple Scottish Tour winner, multiple professional wins in other organisations. He's just a top quality player.
Yeah, twice Scottish champion as well, which is a big title up in Scotland.
Yeah, some competition for that too, by the way.
Some big players out over in Scotland for sure. Good chance here for John. That 8 ball looks tied up, but I think there's enough room for him to squeeze it off the red into the corner pocket. I don't think there'll be too many thoughts of him moving the 8 ball. He could play a yellow off a red and try and get the red away from the pocket that way. It looks like he's just going to leave it where it is and back himself to make that shot off the red. If it might even go direct, it's difficult to tell from our camera angle. Yeah, from the overhead it looks like he will have to play cushion into the red, and then it just squeezes along that cushion and should fly in. If he is to play that shot, he wants to leave himself fairly straight on the yellow to the right corner. You can just see him lining it up there. Doesn't want those reds near the triangle area to get in his way. So now he's thinking about going through so he can play on and off the cushion to get to where he wants to on that 8 ball. Probably more margin of error going that way. Yeah, that's what he's left.
Whole frame comes down to this shot. He knew it would do.
Just got into it a fraction too much. Still makeable though. You can see him now just picking out the point on the cushion he wants to contact with the 8 ball. It's a lot easier if you're right behind this shot. Having to play it half ball makes it tougher.
Yeah, this is a tough little shot, this. For 2 apiece. Yeah, good shot. 2 top players, aren't they? Speaking of top players, this in 3 weeks, by the way. We're so close to it now. The last 16 getting underway in 3 weeks' time. Jordan Shepherd versus Chris Melling, first on the menu. And a amuse-bouche for Phil Harrison and Rob Chilton. Winner of both of those matches head into the quarter-final, which will be played on the same night. Winner of it all will go through to that semi-final. They'll book their ticket onto grand finals night. Just a ridiculous foursome that. Jordan Shepherd, Chris Melling is the fact that we've known for the best part of 3 months that that's the first last 16 tie. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I hope they both come in with the form they showed in getting to that stage, because it will be an electric match, and whoever goes through from each of those quarterfinals, we see a mistake from Scott.
That's a rare one, because that is all down to him.
Ball behind the break line.
Doesn't get it right. Gets good enough power on it, but he knew straight away. And he'll chalk his frame off in his own mind here. He knows that should John Rowe go on to win it, that's what he expects. Just for those who are a little bit newer or a little bit more unfamiliar, Simon, when we say that's a mistake, some people might think, oh, that's really harsh, it's just broken, it's just gone in off, that's just unlucky. That's not quite the same when it goes straight into that line, is it?
Yeah, he wasn't kicked in. It didn't get any other balls make contact with it. It just screwed it straight into the corner pocket. And it's actually, your margin of error on the break is actually really small. If you go for this, most players will go one or two ways. They'll either play that stun shot where they hold the white in the middle of the table, as we saw Kareem do so successfully in the first match, trying to park that white, or they try and screw it back and get the cue ball out of the way. Well, Scott goes for that screw back shot, and if you get it just off straight, it's going to, those corner pockets are absolutely in play.
John with a decent first shot there to develop. Remember, no two shots or anything like that. Just one regular shot, then your visit continues. And with it being off the break, it starts from behind the baulk line. A little bit less punishing than other rule sets I find with cue balls in off the break, international 8-ball rules. And this is another chance for John Rowe. This would be a break of serve, as it were, which when you're talking about players of this level, that's what it tends to be. Although that is a mistake.
It is. You could tell by his facial expressions that he didn't really land where he wanted to on his first couple of positional shots. Opened up with his first one, but didn't get it right with his second. Had to play an awkward cutback. He actually missed it by quite a distance, which was a bit of a surprise.
Just wonder if he's so focused on holding the white, it's just totally ruined his line of the shot.
Yeah, it could well be. The good news for him is at least he hadn't worked out his problem on the left-hand side, so he's left that for Scott to solve. But as Scott does, as all the top players tend to do, go straight after it with your first opportunity, and he's done really well. Knocks it on, leaves himself nicely on this one to the right corner, and problem is solved. Now it's about your route.
Another hallmark of a good player. Errors don't matter. It happens and it's gone. Come back and play a great shot.
That's it, you can't change what's happened. Focus on what's coming up and do the best you can.
Not the type of player to beat himself up. Scott Gillespie, don't get me wrong, he'd have been very frustrated about that break, but as soon as he sits down, it's gone, and then he can come back and play a really good shot. He's got more work to do though. This is a little bit tricky. Just transitioning between the yellows, the reds rather at the top of the table and the red at the bottom isn't the easiest thing to be able to do here. There's a bit of a minefield in between that. So let's just carefully figure these ones out.
Yeah, didn't quite have the control on his second shot after the developing shot that he really wanted. He played a bit of a cannon that didn't quite work out exactly, but had route through to that one at the top of the table, and from there he's able to get the control back. .45-second shot clock in the early part of the matches, and Scott's using as much of them as he can, or as much of it as he can, to make sure he's got his pattern as he wants it. It's something to keep an eye on with Scott. Not saying he's a slow player, not by any stretch of the imagination, but just not a player that will have done a huge amount or played a huge amount with a 15-second shot clock.
Yeah, he's a situational player is what I'd say. I don't think he's particularly quick, I don't think he's particularly slow. Whatever he's offered, he'll use.
Yeah, and I think unless you've been out there in tournament play and played with 15 seconds, you can practice it, but it is very, very quick. And if you are used to having a little bit longer, even if it's 30 or 45, it can catch you out. We've seen that with other players when they've played their first match with it being 15. John has had a bit more experience with it, playing in the previous event. 3 matches under his belt with that format of shot clock.
That's the ball he wants to end up on. Can he pick the line? I think that'll do. That's pretty perfect to me. Got enough angle just to come on and off the cushion and leave a simple 8-ball. And again, the sort of tricky finish is navigated. We talked about, Scott after that bad break, sort of writing off this frame in his own mind. John Rowe will have done that as soon as he missed. He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm not getting a chance here. I've got to focus on my next frame." And that sort of notion of a serve comes back into it, doesn't it? It's almost Wimbledon's on at the moment. It is almost that sort of thing when you've got 2 players at the top level. You've just got to focus on what you can control, which for these guys is their own break and their own chances off it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that John will be sat there frustrated that he didn't make the most of a mistake from Scott, didn't manage to punish that, and he'll have to forget it, as you say, move on, next opportunity.
It's quarter 2, and that second last 16 group, Carl Sutton, Sam Bircher, Josh Kane, Declan Brennan. Great matchup, that second one in particular. Really excited for Carl Sutton and Sam Bircher as well. But the way that Declan Brennan and Josh Kane
6.
played in their matches
John
through,
Rowe to break.
that one could be a real barn burner. Two really, really talented lefties. Declan Brennan, who, for all the... We talked about Scott Gillespie maybe looking like the best player in the world before COVID, after COVID. That's still a little bit up in the air. It's not quite been enough tournaments to really decide that. That's unlucky if you're John Rowe. But for my money, Declan Brennan is very much in that conversation at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, he's certainly showing it. He's been, very talked about player, but he's starting to have the title starting to follow him now on that bigger stage. And coming out of lockdown, coming out of the COVID period, he started off like a train.
Oh, John's face there, an absolute picture. Got away with it once, got away with it twice. The third time unlucky as that ball made its way eventually into the middle pocket.
It was a bit like a slow death, wasn't it? It was hanging on the edge of the pocket, and there was a lot of ball still in motion, and he knew that there was going to be a chance, and unfortunately for him, it did actually happen.
Extension called.
First shot's the key shot here for Scott. He can only go behind the balk line, remember, similar to John in the last frame. Gets this right, frame in his mercy.
Yeah, considering some of the finishes we've seen these guys take out, this is a bit simpler than the others. It looks a little bit messier, but assuming the 8 ball goes to the bottom right-hand corner, every ball has its pocket. I wonder if Scott just came back a little bit too far. He's having a really good look to see whether this red passes to the top right-hand pocket. He may well have played for the red into the centre pocket, and he's just overdone the cue ball. And it did go. It was just the fact that he was sort of double and triple checking that it went. Maybe question that, but he's absolutely in perfect position. He's got this mapped out in his head already. He's just confirming it to himself. A really simple kind of routine here or pattern for him from here.
You'd expect so.
Yeah, if he can get himself straightish on the red to the bottom right-hand corner, just drop it in. And assuming the 8 ball does go, as we said, then it takes the other one to the bottom left-hand corner, just come on and off, and you've got it to the right corner. It's all about pace control. That looks perfect.
That tells us 8 ball does go. Just been waiting for Scott Price to clear the way for us to see that particular camera shot. His job far more important than ours, I guess, in that respect.
Yeah, Scott does a great job out there. Refereeing, we hardly ever see him. It's always a sign he's doing a great job.
It's amazing how true that is in so many different sports, isn't it? Yeah, shout out to Scott, one of the best.
Just looking from the overhead camera, actually, it looks like the cue ball won't go past the yellow, but I'm pretty sure there's enough room. It's just oh, he wouldn't go past it, so he had to play into it. It worked out beautifully for him.
Another brilliant clearance. And this, remember, a break of serve. We talked about it being so important. As we head into the break here, Scott Gillespie goes 4-2 in front, opens up 2-frame cushion. There's 21.5 minutes to go in this match between two top players. Plenty left in this one. Welcome back to the Ultimate Pool Masters. Scott Gillespie, John Rowe in this last 64 match. Winner goes through to face Kean Monaghan tonight for a place in the last 16. 4-2, Scott Gillespie to break. Haven't missed a ball whilst we were on break. Well, if his last break was a little bit of an error in screwing straight back, do you feel that Scott's really taken it out on his next one?
Yeah, that would look painful, but he's absolutely hammered this break. He really has.
Goodness me. That is about as good as you can hit it.
Yeah, even then he got the cue ball going slightly too close to that corner for comfort, but yeah, he's got some revenge on the break for sure. And look at the lay he's been left with.
I always think, it's a useful metric to me, a useful rule of thumb, that if I look at a table and think, oh yeah, I could clear these up, I sort of think about the next frame. Scott's not going to have any problem with these.
Red ball's in play.
Yeah, you should see him run through these fairly comfortably. Just a couple at the top of the table. Just take his, give him a little bit of attention which order he wants to take those in. I think the way he's, or his mannerisms around the table now tell you that I think the previous shot he's underhit quite significantly. Almost like saying he's not getting through the ball properly. You see him waving his arm around there. This isn't a perfect angle. It's difficult to come back without hitting the 8 ball. That's why he's gone the other way. Played that quite well. 2 cushions. A little bit of running side.
Could have taken either colour set, which really is testament to just how good the set for him was. I think he's taken reds just to free up that 8 ball more than anything else. Now this transition shot to the bottom of the table.
Yeah, he's got a little bit too much angle on this red. May well use a yellow as a bit of a blocker. I don't know if he can play the side cushion and avoid the yellows to drift down on the natural angle towards those reds. If not, then he may just target the middle of the 3 yellows. Oh, he's tried to avoid them and played that beautifully. What a lovely shot that is.
So good.
And we talk about how good his break was and how good a chance he'd left himself, but until this moment he didn't have perfect position on any of his shots. It just shows you still have to keep working hard even when you get these big splits.
Looking every inch the Scott Gillespie that we last saw in early 2020. Goodness me, he looks good, doesn't he? A 5-2 lead, a 3-frame cushion. Here is quarter 3 of the last 16 draw. Simon Fitzsimmons through with Gav Robinson, take on Craig Waddingham and John Chambers later on in the night. I think it's pretty fair to say of all the men and women in that quarter of the draw, a slightly unexpected last 16 quartet. But I think the tournament's better for that. You know, you've got, that's not to discredit any of the players that have come through, but we were a little bit unsure of how, you know, especially the likes of Craig and John in particular would play. But they've rocked up and shown the sort of form that got them to the level that they once were a few years back. All of a sudden, this tournament's wide open, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think it just shows what can be done. I think there's been a few cases, especially in that part of the draw, where arguably, or with the bookies, the third favourites come through and made it through the night. But yeah, I agree with you. It's great to see that.
The thing is no one gets through this format without playing really, really well.
Yeah, it's too deep a field and too tough a format. You have to play, you know, really good pool to make it through. I was just about to say, this is a big visit to the table for John. Match starting to slip away from him. 5-3, 3 frames behind. Plenty of time left, and he's just got to break off and made a ball. But one tricky ball there on the left-hand side, difficult to solve. Not sure if the yellow at the bottom of the table goes. The yellow to the top left, if he can play that in with lots of running side, he could potentially go into the bad yellow, but going into it probably without a huge amount of pace, and you're not going to be able to develop it because of the reds around it. So I just don't see that working out for him. And he's tried, and it hasn't worked out for him at all. So difficult to hit that hard enough to open it up.
So tough.
He just saw him point his finger on the cushion again. He may well play. We saw him play a shot similar to this, although a bit easier with the 8-ball in one of the earlier frames. This is much tougher. The red's a little bit further away from the cushion. In fact, he played it in such a way where he wasn't trying to pot it. It was just an out-and-out safety shot and to get the yellow going towards the corner pocket.
I don't mind that, you know, that's a choice of shot.
To try and make that off the red and open up the table at the same time, you risk losing the frame for doing it. You know, he's kept it tight. This game isn't about clearing up from the break, it's about winning frames of Paul, and yeah, he could have chased a finish there, and yeah, maybe he could have made that shot, but no guarantees, and it was too risky for me. And that's a great response as well.
Oh, some pot that.
Wasn't a lot that Scott could do. He played the safety shot, but John's come up with a big pot. Just the way that John was looking at the table there, I've got a feeling, yeah, from our main camera angle, I thought this yellow might go, but you can clearly see from this camera that yellow does not go past the 8-ball. He was looking at it to see whether he could play it off the red. And that's a tough shot.
That's a really tough shot. I just don't think there's another way to play into it.
No,
it's on an island, isn't it?
It is, and if you
Extension called.
pot either of the balls at the top of the table, then you're kind of committing yourself. You really don't want to pot one.
Can he play a safety? He's going for it.
He's going for it. So I just wonder whether that yellow, he can get onto it into the centre pocket. If he can get down into the bottom right-hand corner of the table, that yellow probably does go into the centre. Yeah, you can just see him working it out now. Has to pinch the pocket, but that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, easily done. Just needs the cue ball to travel, and it hasn't.
It did go. There's your answer. But he needed to be right behind it, and now he's left with nothing. I mean, I say nothing. He can play it cushion first, but this is a half-ball snooker to get out of.
Yeah.
Without an obvious angle.
And you have to hit cushion after contact as well. So you are opening everything up here. You're handing the frame over.
Is it a good old-fashioned hit and Chris? Where's the 8-ball? Well, that'll do the frame anyway.
Frame. Scott Gillespie.
Scott Gillespie goes 4 frames clear without even having to get up out of his chair. John Rowe just deciding to chance it. Didn't have a huge amount on. That's a tough one to take if you are John. Reminder of what we've seen already in quarter 4. Our fan dad, the daddy, taking down Stevie Dempsey, who in turn took down Neil Rayburn in the first rounds. Tremendous performance from him. Couldn't quite get past our fan dad. It was so solid all night long, despite only making a ball, I think, 1 break or something ridiculous. He was so impressive. By the way, sorry, it's now our 7-day warning for Sean Chipperfield versus Michael Hill.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about that one from the start. You've been calling it the match of the round. I don't think anyone would disagree with it. Absolutely brilliant matchup for a first-round match. Incredible.
You talk about a battle of former world champions, or former and current here with Scott and John. Michael Hill versus Sean Chipperfield is it's a humdinger.
It really is. One of the greatest to ever do it against another former world champion.
Yellow balls in play.
Both very entertaining players to watch as well. It's not just the titles they've won.
It's a brilliant styles matchup as well.
Yeah, like the machine-like Michael Hill versus Sean Chipperfield, who is very much more your kind of natural run round, do it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Very eye-catching player.
John needed this. He really needed this. It's a decent break from Scott in terms of the split. didn't get blessed with a ball, and this was exactly what John was praying for. This is a finish that should go with no real questions asked, and just keep him in the match. It's still a long way back with 11 minutes left and a 3-frame deficit. Scott is only 2 from home, but it just keeps him in the conversation, and that's all he can do at this point.
Yeah, and he knows now this is a finish. Or has he just decelerated a little bit on that shot? He's just come back far enough. I was just going to say that he, you know, he gets to break next, and he is breaking so well. He's already had 2 break dishes. He probably should have had a third in the previous frame. Or I say that being a bit harsh, saying he should have had a third. There was an opportunity for a third.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take that all day. Red going in doesn't matter. Use the red to hold the white, and this frame is iced. John Rowe keeps himself in contention.
Frame.
The ringer dials up a counter clearance, a reverse dish. Put himself back within 3. We are heading towards that 15-second shot clock. In fact, that will start in this next frame. I see both players just noticing that. And Scott will very much have had that in the back of his mind. We talked about it earlier. He's not a typically quick player. He's got the ability to, but it's not his natural game at all. John a little bit more suited, a little bit more used to maybe playing at a quicker shot clock in the last few months or so.
I just think that experience of playing in the previous event, 3 matches at that speed, will really help him here.
Frame 10.
And what he does need is a big
John
break here,
break.
give himself that opportunity to close the gap to 2 and put some real pressure onto Scott.
Clock.
Is that going to come up dry? Yes, it is. Scott Gillespie with the first chance and his first experience, as we mentioned, of that 15-second shot clock, which 15 seconds sounds like quite a lot of time to play a shot, but it's this bit that's the difficult bit. It's spotting the pattern. It's playing your shots ahead of shots in your head,
Extension
which you need
called.
to think about. Extension called immediately, not a bad play from Scott Gillespie, who does a lot of work right now in mapping the entire frame out. If you can get that sorted, 15 seconds in a shot won't worry him.
Yeah, you're right. It's fine when
Red
everything's
ball's
in the
play.
open and you just need to work out your route and kind of work your way through it. But when you've got your couple of problems to solve and a couple of tricky bits here and there, that's when 15 seconds just feels like absolutely nothing. And you just haven't got time to really consider your options.
Oh, that one only just went, but it did. And this is just about all there. It's all about picking your route here, because that red to the top of the table is the one that's needs taking care of, especially when you consider what's at the bottom of the table, and this is end of visit. Wanted to go into the yellow and the reds, missed it, not by much, but by enough. And now Scott Gillespie has to find a safety shot, because there's no way out of this. He's not got an extension. Is he going to keep on taking on? No.
Yeah, no thoughts of the pot there. Just turn the table over.
Chance if you John Rowe.
I love that reaction from Scott. First taste of the 15 seconds. And
Extension called.
yeah, it doesn't feel like much time at all.
He had a look at the match clock there, didn't he? It's almost to say, how long was that? Not very.
Not the worst result there for John. Just nudged the yellow in front of the red. And not sure if it's fully blocked it off, but it may have made it slightly trickier. If it hasn't, great chance for Scott to get
I think this
one way.
goes. Just having a look at that camera angle we just saw there, I have a feeling this goes if you can land right behind it.
He might be able to play it from here, actually. And then flick off the yellow into the middle of the table. Yeah.
There's your answer. So actually the missing of that double was key.
Yeah, I thought he got away with it for a second, but he obviously didn't. Not perfect here for Scott.
And a very, very rare missed pot. Blue moon sort of stuff, this from Scott Gillespie. Do not see this very often.
Yeah, put a lot of attention there on the cannon because he was trying to play a screw back off the cannon.
That's unfortunate for John. Didn't want that to go down. He wanted that yellow over the pocket just to hover. Makes this next shot much more difficult. Could have been straight. He'd have had an extra ball on the table. And because of that, you can't quite keep the cue ball on a string. Margins in this game at times never fail to astound me. If that yellow stays on the table, these next 3 balls are absolutely routine.
Yeah, it makes getting on that one on the left-hand side, on the cushion, just simple. And now he's got to play a good positional shot to land there, and if you don't land nicely on it, it becomes a very difficult shot. And he's not landed on the one at the bottom of the table either, so he's in all sorts of trouble.
This is a tough shot now.
But I agree with you, this all stems from making those 2 in 1 at the start of the visit.
He's not got a lot of time to play it. Didn't even consider it in the end. Leaves the ball over the pocket. Trusts that Scott can't play a shot. He's actually within the constraints of a 15-second shot clock. It's a really clever shot from John Rowe.
Well, I assume that red didn't go with John's choice of
So
shot.
did I.
There may not have been a huge amount of room there for Scott, but he's found it. Decent enough positional shot as well.
Yeah, I thought that yellow blocked the pocket. How wrong was I? Cues it down the rail. Great shot. This to go 1 from home. An immensely impressive display from Scott Gillespie. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The margin of victory here between the 2 is so fine, but this is what Scott Gillespie does.
Yeah, I think that's going to really settle him down as well. You could see him, every time he walked away from the table there, and you could see he looks a lot more relaxed already. He was having a look up at the clock. He was,
Tale of 2 players, by the way.
And I think the reason John's going to be so frustrated, obviously he's in, a world of trouble now, but it's the fact that that was a great opportunity to win that frame, get himself 2 behind, and really put Scott under pressure for the last 4 or 5 minutes. I think Scott now is sitting there fairly comfortable that his work is done.
11. Scott Gillespie to break.
It's not
Leading
completely.
7
Needs
frames
one
to
more
3.
frame or let this clock run down.
Scott Gillespie 1 from home. Hits that break like a man who's 1 from home, but it's going to open up. John Rowe is not the man to give up. 4 minutes, 4 frames needed is almost miracle territory.
Yellow ball's in play.
But it's not necessarily over. A little shake of the head there from Scott. He's not quite had the run of the ball when it comes to his break. He's hit several very good ones without being rewarded with a ball. And if that continues, just see that could be a way to trip him up for Keir Monaghan in the final. Should he get that's a lovely little touch from John Rowe. A terrific shot there.
Yeah, great cannon. The problem he has is he missed his cannon with his first shot at the bottom of the table. So his biggest problem is still that yellow right at the bottom to the left-hand side. Can he get it out now? Yes, great shot. Brilliant visit.
What clearance this is. The standard of this match at times has been outstanding. He's cleared this in less than a minute. Superb, John Rowe. That was awesome.
Frame.
So impressive.
Yeah,
That's how good he is.
After he's missed that first cannon, he looked massive odds against, but 2 consecutive shots on the trot to get bad balls out. Brilliant stuff. And he's still in it. He needs a bit of help. He needs either have every opportunity and take out 3 more finishes with very quick fire, or he needs a golden break of some sort.
It's not impossible, but it's just incredibly unlikely. It does need a lot from here. Just a little look at the match clock. That tells you all you need to know.
Frame 12. John Rowe to break. Trailing 7 frames to 4.
4 minutes then for John Rowe. He needs a ball here, at least. Would love the 8 ball if possible. Oh, it's tracking. Had a sniff, didn't it? He's made a ball though, and these are there. Ish.
Yeah, ish. That 8 ball's gone awkward.
Red ball's in play.
Okay, chance isn't too bad. Depends what he wants to do with that 8 ball. I think he's going to be looking to leave the red nearest the left centre pocket. Either use that as a ball trying to develop the 8 ball or potentially play on the 8 ball.
Well, if we're going on about a minute of clearance, he's not on a bad click at the moment.
Oh, he left himself too straight at the top of the table. This is tough. And he's got to pick a gap with the cue ball. Part 1 done. Oh, and he's landed. Lovely shot. Oh, he's gone through the yellow beautifully there. That was a much better shot than it looked.
This is outstanding stuff. Can he finish it off? No. It's such a tough shot. And that will finish the match now. Scott Gillespie will go and take these out and win it before the clock strikes midnight. Such a tricky shot, that. Just the way that he was playing, though, the way that he was building up, you just thought you backed him to make that, as difficult as it was.
Yeah, and if that gone in, there still would have been 3 minutes on the clock. You know, would have been 2 behind.
It's a lovely little touch, that, from Scott. Just nick the 8 ball over that middle pocket, make his work even simpler. You cannot imagine another error from here.
John will be pinning his hopes to that yellow on the right-hand side. This one he's about to play. This could be a safety. It is. I think that's the right choice. Okay, he is running a risk here of John making it off the bottom cushion.
It's a big risk, though.
Scott wanted to get the cue ball a lot further to the left-hand side.
He'll go close. He went close. The hit wasn't difficult. It was just actually finding the potting angle off the bottom cushion. And he was not far off doing that. It was the percentage shot. Try that one again. Percentage shot from Scott, but within that percentage was a big element of risk.
Yeah, it was the percentage shot, but for me, it just didn't quite execute the shot perfectly. If he gets the cue ball, you know, across the left-hand side of the table, he blocks off the one cushion escape with the opportunity to make it into the centre pocket, and making that the odds of him, you know, of John making it from a cushion, you know, much less. As it is, he's dodged that bullet, and this should be the final visit to the table in this match.
This has been superb from Scott Gillespie. It's been a great match, actually. I think both players have really played their part. John has played some truly brilliant stuff tonight. Sometimes that's not enough. Scott Gillespie heads through to the last study two to take on Keir Monaghan. A brilliant match between the current and former world champion. One that was as advertised, but Scott Gillespie comes out on top. That was a high-quality match in which the stats don't really tell the story of it.
No, brilliant match for me. It felt a little bit scrappy in that first frame, but you know, once that first visit was taken out by Scott Gillespie, it really came to life. You know, both players have made a nice few finishes from the break. In fact, 4 to 3 for John. But for me, the big stat that jumps out at me when we look at the list there is that the 5 missed pots for John against the 2 for Scott. He just missed a couple more chances. I remember one where it looked like he was going to go in front following a foul from a break from Scott, and he wasn't able to work it out and take a finish we felt like he should. But then Scott was able to edge in front, and he sort of, although a little bit of a comeback there at the end, it was always felt like it was going Scott's way from about that midpoint onwards.
Yeah, superb performance, and similar really to John's performance in the Champions League, where it started a little bit slow and built up, and all of a sudden by the end you're wondering where that form was at the start of the match. That might have made it a little bit closer. Either way, Congratulations, John. A great performance, but not quite enough to knock out Scott Gillespie. He will be back. Our final tonight is set. It's Cian Monaghan versus Scott Gillespie, and it is next. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Ultimate Pool Masters. Our final is set, and what a final in prospect here as Cian Monaghan takes on Scott Gillespie. Let's talk about Cian first, Simon, because we saw not much of him earlier on. That match was short, but very, very sweet. If you're a Cian Monaghan fan, a terrific win, 8-0 against Berrada, and all of a sudden you're starting to wonder, if his form picks up, he can issue a real challenge to an established top pro like Scott Gillespie here. And as he said to us earlier, he doesn't care about the names and the titles that these players have won. He plays each game by himself on merit. Love that sort of a young confidence, isn't it, that you're able to have at that age, and he's got it.
Yeah, it's one thing to say you don't care who you're playing, they don't worry about the names, but when he says it, I really believe it. I think he almost raises his game when he plays against somebody, of Scott's level, but I think he's going to have to. We saw him play a brilliant first match, but he was kind of given a bit of an easy ride there, and he's going to have to step it up here. He's going to probably have a much harder finishes to take out, and he's going to have to put the pressure onto Scott because Scott looks like he's in form.
Yeah, doesn't he just? A brilliant performance over a very, very good John Rowe by Scott Gillespie. And in the ad break, I did manage to catch up with the man from Larkhall. Here's what he had to tell me. Oh, big congratulations. Terrific performance. That was the game that we really hoped it would be from a neutral's perspective. Was it as you hoped it would be from your perspective?
To be honest, I think I superseded how I was going to play, because I've had a couple of wee events run up to this event, and always with COVID I've not played at all. So I'm actually really chuffed at how I've played there. It was, but cameras they tend to bring the best out of my game, you know what I mean?
How pleased are you just to be back? Because we talked about it a little bit on commentary. Before, obviously, the whole pandemic thing hit, you were arguably the form player in the world. It must have been a really tough blow for you to then sit out for basically a year. How nice is it just to be back playing top competition on the telly where you belong?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, always like pool's a part of my life, and like 3 weekends out of the month normally I'm away. And my missus, she was actually starting to say, I'm seeing more than you than ever, you know what I mean? So she's like, when these tournaments starting back, do I get rid of you again? But no, it's great just to have the tournaments back, you know what I mean?
A great match for you just gone against John, a great match in prospects against a young man, Cian Monaghan, who looks at your titles and dismisses them entirely, and that's what you like, isn't it? It's going to be a good challenge. He performed really well earlier on. What are you expecting from him?
Yeah, obviously he's got a good hit at the table. He's obviously a great young prospect. I mean, I'm an older guy now, but see, at the end of the day, I'm happy just to be back at the tournaments, to be back competing, and obviously whatever happens. I mean, I've got still a good few tournaments in me, you know what I mean? So it's good to just be back playing.
Congratulations on the win. We look forward to watching you now.
Cheers.
Here it is then. The final is set. Cian Monaghan versus Scott Gillespie. Let's have it as we fly into tonight's final.
Yeah, it should be fantastic, this match. Rising star in Cian Monaghan versus Scott Gillespie, the established player, the current world champion. It's Scott to break first, and he wants to continue where he finished off in that last match and really take it to Cian and not give him an easy start. Well, it's not going to happen that way because his first break he's gone in off.
He's not quite had it with the breaks tonight. If you were to pick one thing with Scott's performance that he'll be frustrated with, it would be the break. That's just sheer unluckiness. You know, he can't control that. It's a good hit, good line in the cue ball. Sometimes you get kicked in off, it happens. But that was a bit of a story of that first match, wasn't it? Because Scott, despite making good contact, despite getting good lines, wasn't getting the rub of the green in terms of making a ball.
Yeah,
if that continues, that could be Cian's in.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit of a mixed bag for Scott, you'd say, from the break in that first match. It felt like watching it that he was breaking brilliantly, but actually in terms of just results alone, it wasn't really the case. You know, a couple of in-offs and a couple of dry. He did have a break dish in there, or a couple of break dishes in there as well.
The other balls in play.
Cian couldn't quite decide what to do with that first shot, and in the end was starting to panic about the time left.
It's not a bad opening shot though, despite that.
Yeah, he's played the shot really well, just nudged everything open, and the yellows are, this has a very similar feel to his first opportunity that he had in his opening match, following the foul, and everything's wide open for him. It's about this cue ball and about the route that he takes, and he did it so well in his opening match all the way through. One good positional shot here, just to get the cue ball across to the left-hand side on that one down the rail, and that will be job done for him. Don't think he can land there from this one. Maybe he can punch across, but might wait a shot.
Yeah, I agree totally with what you said in the intro to this match, where it's sort of one thing to say that you don't play the player, you don't play the occasion. It's another thing to be able to do it. It takes a sort of special type of player to be able to do that at a young age. I know that's something that you speak to a lot of players and at a very high level, and they sometimes still struggle to do it. But if you can have that about you at a young age, it stands you in very, very good stead.
Yeah, and I really believe it when Cian says it. I think it actually goes the other way with Cian. I actually think the better the player he's playing against, the more he's up for it, the more he wants that I'm going to show you kind of mentality. I'm going to show you how good I am. Got a kick on that previous shot, did Cian. That's why the cue ball's finished a roll short, so he's had to go for a double instead because he couldn't play position on the one in the centre and get it back across the table, and that's why he's missed. A little bit unfortunate, I have to say, for Cian to get that kick. Just the two reds at the top of the table for Scott to work out. Not sure the one on the right hand side goes past the one nearest the cushion. If not, maybe he has to play on the one nearest the cushion first. From the overhead, maybe there's enough room. If the one to the right of the two does go, then it's a fairly comfortable clearance here for Scott.
We say this a lot about the top players. This is what they do so well. You can play well against them, but if you make a mistake, that is when you really tend to notice the difference.
Yeah, no
and that's
doubt.
what Cian has to do tonight. Scott, I mean, you'd be hard pressed in calling it a mistake and going in off the break, but in not punishing that and actually opening it up the other way, doesn't want to set a precedent there.
Scott's not happy with his cue ball this time. Should still be okay. Yeah, you are right though. It's just when you're playing the top players, they punish your mistakes. If you don't take out a clearance when you're on it, then you're never going to get back to the table, or you feel like you're never going to get back to the table.
Wasn't happy with his white ball a couple of shots ago, but it has been on a string ever since. It's about to go 1-0 for Goobsy Gillespie.
Frame.
Superb stuff from Scotty. And the Scot is 1-0 up against Cian Monaghan from Larkhall, just outside of Glasgow. That list of accolades doesn't even begin to do him justice. Those cogs that form a part of that sleeve tattoo, a real insight into the sort of pool machine that he is. He is, at his best, a really, really difficult man to beat.
Yeah, just one of the best players in the world, simply put.
Second frame. Cian Monaghan to break. Trailing 1-0.
Cian did break very well in his opening match. Got the 8 ball in motion quite a lot as well.
Yeah, it could be a story of this match, the break, because Cian is breaking so well. We did see that all the way through his match. It's a slightly unique break. Don't see many like it. Especially with the cut break as well, taking it from so wide, but also taking it with that stood up.
Yeah, that's the sort of, you see that break a lot more, players standing up on it a bit more from the front ball break. Don't see it as much from the cut break because you absolutely, if you're standing up on it more, you're more likely to get a little bit more bounce on that cue ball because you're not quite necessarily cueing it as smoothly, and therefore you can jump the cue ball off the table. But there doesn't look to be a hint of it from Cian. He's standing up on it and still cueing it beautifully. Just came back a fraction too far. I think the plan was to be straight on this, roll through, and then you've got the yellow into the opposite centre. If he rolls through from here, he's going into the yellow or very close to it. So
does he even consider taking it? Well, he's not. He's going to take it to the middle. I was going to say, does he consider taking it to the top left to try and arrest that?
That would be an option. He's going to go a different way. He's going to save that yellow for his last ball now. It's not too bad. You may not get straight on it to the corner, but if you're 3/4 ball on it, take it to the corner. No problems landing on that 8 ball. That's not too bad. If he's absolutely straight, then all he can really do is drop this in and leave a slightly harder last ball. If he has just enough angle, he can just jack the cue up, and that looks like what he's got. So stun the cue ball down towards it.
Yeah, that'll do. He's going to do his due diligence and just line it up. Get the feeling this is a big visit in the context of this match.
You can feel it, can't you?
I think
you can
he knows
sense it. Yeah.
Did he just talk himself out of it? Always feel that when a player gets up on a shot like that, the odds of them then missing go up astronomically.
Yeah, what he was telling us there was he knew how big a shot that was. Hasn't left anything particularly easy for Scott Gillespie here.
But Scott's shown he's not afraid of taking a safe option if it's there to hammer home an advantage. You won't chase a finish unnecessarily.
And that's what he's done. Oh, it's not a good safety though.
Yeah, double kiss has very nearly been very unkind.
Yeah, he's a little bit lucky actually. A little bit lucky to get away with that. That's match play Paul there though. Still very early in this match. His opponent's just made a mistake. He punished the one in the previous frame. No need to take on a big shot there. Play that safety shot and then wait for a better opportunity.
Oh, I thought Cian was going to do it there. Great effort. It's not a foul, by the way, despite potting the red. International 8-ball rules that is A-OK. Played a legal shot in doing so and playing his ball first, so that's fine. Does Scott now have a route to go for this frame? I think he probably does. It's a great effort at the pop.
Just asking for the cue ball to be clean. Needs to watch the clock here. The clock doesn't stop when the cue ball's being cleaned.
Red ball even.
Oh, the red ball, sorry.
Yeah, object ball getting cleaned, which is quite rare.
I think that he's going to be playing this one slowly, just coming back across the face. I think that one of those two reds will go to the top left-hand corner. Yeah, played that nicely enough. It's quite amazing with Cian's shot that he actually managed to overcut that. That was an incredibly thin cut to the top left-hand corner.
Yeah, he's thinking if he misses that, it's got to be cut thick.
Yeah.
But to overcut it, I didn't even think that'd be possible.
No, it was a great effort from Cian. Scott was very lucky to get away with his safety shot. It was a poor one.
2-0. Never in doubt.
Frame.
Big frame that potentially in the context of the match, I feel.
Yeah.
Ian Monaghan with a very, very decent chance within it. The youngster, 18 years of age, not quite yet 19, not for a couple of weeks at least. The young man from Radcliffe in Manchester has played in big pressure matches, he's no stranger to those. Even at a senior level, you saw his youth titles there, but shootout semi-finalist is no mean feat. That event in Milton Keynes was well attended and live on the box as well. So he's no stranger to a match of this magnitude.
Yeah, it's just the way he's gone 2-0 down for me. That's going to be tough. He's going to have to just sit there and focus on that next opportunity whenever it comes. He'll want it to come in this frame, but even if it's the next. I find these little mind games in a match fascinating.
I think Scott's ever so slightly changed his break there as well. I feel like he's been breaking just slightly the other side, hasn't he? Just changed the angle. It's essentially the same break, just mirrored.
Yeah, he has, because he was going close to going off into that top right-hand corner, and he did actually manage it on one occasion. And he's been rewarded. Lovely break, good split. Could go either colour set here. Yellow in the top half of the table on the left-hand side does go into the left centre, so yellows are an option. Reds are a little bit more congested at the top end of the table, but there's definitely an out there as well.
Yeah, and the 8-ball goes off either colour set, no problem at all.
Looks like yellows is his choice though. Just that one yellow to land on. If he can do it off his first shot, then the work will be done. Maybe just need a trace of side to get nicely on it.
Yellow ball's in play.
No, he's not landed. Not sure if he was playing for it into the centre pocket or he's trying to come across it and take it to the top right-hand corner. But either way, he's not landed where he wanted to, and that's where the hard work now will begin. Can he get back to that area of the table?
Yeah, safe to say that wasn't the shot he was trying to play. He's still got plenty of time within this clearance though to get to where he needs to be.
Not sure that was the exact shot he was trying to play either. Probably wasn't playing the cannon.
I think in an ideal world, he ends up straight on the yellow down the rail and just screws back. That's quite difficult to land straight on the yellow on the rail from here, because he's straight on the yellow to the bottom left.
We could take this yellow to the top left because that's a big pocket with that red.
That's not a bad shout.
And
yeah, that's what he's trying.
Yeah, I love that.
Didn't even see that to the top of the table. It's a great reroute. A little bit of top just to work this one through. Not enough.
A little kick on that. You could just see him just raise the cue up immediately. Watch the cue ball here. It just almost stops dead.
Yeah, it dies, doesn't it?
Yeah, see that? You can almost see it on the overhead. That's that little jump of the cue ball. And that's really hurt him.
This is now a really tough shot.
He has to still take it on from this angle though.
He has to, but it's not just the pot, it's the white as well. Going well away from the rest of his work. Oh, he played it off the red to hold the white. What a brilliant bit of imagination. This would have been an amazing shot. Well, you know that Scott Gillespie's got that in the locker. Some of the shots that he's pulled out down the years. I mean, I know he's got one of your favourite of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bad miss from Kean.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest shot makers I've ever seen. Some of the shots he comes up with is just absolutely incredible. He's been let off the hook here. Kean's missed that because he was playing it quite a bit aside, trying to get into those two reds that are causing a problem there together on the left-hand side. We're not even 3 frames into this match, and Keane's already made more mistakes in this match than he made in the whole of the first match tonight.
If Keane didn't jump up on that yellow and potted it no problem, made the 8 ball, he makes that red for me. So much more pressure on that red because of what happened in the frame before. And this is why it's difficult. This is why it is difficult playing a player like Scott Gillespie, because despite all the talk, and however much Keane believes that talk as well, that he tells us that he just plays the table, plays his own game, doesn't matter who the opponent is, it's just a name. He's not daft. He knows that any mistake is going to be punished, and that in itself is its own pressure.
Yeah, and the fact that he does get punished as well. You know, he was let off the hook a couple of times in his opening match. Not that he made any mistakes in his opening match, really, but, you know, when his opponent, when Kareem got the first opportunity, he let him off the hook and gave it, almost opened the game up a little bit for Keane. So, going to have to work hard to get back into this match mentally. He's going to have to just stay focused, wait for that next opportunity. He still has time, he can still do it, but it is going to be tough. 3
weeks away from the last 16, Jordan Shepherd versus Chris Melling. Get that date in your diary now. Phil Harrison versus Rob Chilton is the other match on show there.
Frame number 4.
Just such a good last 16 group. It really is. We've said it plenty of times through the course of this tournament because we've known about it for a long time now. But that is a group of 4 good enough to be the last 4 of any competition in the world.
Completely agree. Would not be a shock to be the final of this competition. That is the standard. And the one thing that catches my eye every time I look through the whole list is just how well every player that's made it through has had to play and has played. We've just seen, you know, great performances from everybody that's made it through so far.
Oh, that first quarter was an unbelievable gauntlet. Look at the players that didn't make it through. You know, likes of John McAllister, Carl Morris. You know, there was so many world champions that didn't even make it out of the group. As Keane Monaghan can't make his first shot here. That's another surprising one. Just needs to relax and try and get his head back in the game here. But that is so easily said and so difficultly done, particularly when Scott Gillespie in this position. This is where he puts the foot down. This is where he makes it even harder for you.
It's amazing because once you miss one, and he missed the first one, okay, that happens. The second one was a bigger surprise because it felt like more comfortable for him. But once those first 2 have gone, all of a sudden you make another mistake in the next. You're 3-0 behind, and you get your first chance there, and it's awkward. It's a tricky pot in the centre. You miss again, and all of a sudden as the way he played in the first match was so good, that sort of memory's almost gone, and you're only thinking about the mistakes you've made in this match, and it's so hard to forget that and just focus on that next opportunity.
Yellow ball's in play.
Yeah, it's a really cruel game, really cruel sport, this, and it is. The beauty of it is it's so easy to sit here and say what we've said, but to actually do that and put that into practice is so incredibly tough.
It really is. You almost feel like all you can see out there is problems. Scott might not get out of here. I don't think he's on his next ball.
Yeah, I don't think, looking at that, I thought he could get to the top of the table. Looking at that angle, I'm not sure he can. I don't think he can swerve into this yellow here. Is he looking at playing cushion first and then yellow onto red?
I think he must be. We've already talked about how creative he is, one of the best shot makers in the world.
He's probably got just about enough capacity to swerve this to the top corner. What's he playing?
Maybe just trying to nudge the yellow across.
Oh! You are joking.
Okay, maybe a little bit more than nudged the yellow across. He's gone and made it. That is brilliant. That really is. Not only has he made it, look where the cue ball finishes here.
The fact that he's left the cue ball there tells me he's meant to do that.
Yeah, he was absolutely trying to make that.
That's amazing. You called it, Simon. One of the best shot makers in the game, doing what he does best. Oh, welcome back, Scott Gillespie. We've missed you. For 4-zip.
It's just brilliant stuff. It really is. Scott Gillespie is so good.
Right.
Those sort of shots, though, for me, you almost have to see him make a mistake to be able to see the big shots come out. Because if he plays it flawless, he clears up. He doesn't snooker himself. But, you know, he puts himself in trouble, and then he comes up with that. And it's not a surprise. It's just not a surprise.
That is ridiculous. Quarter 2 of the last 16 looks like this. Carl Sutton was superb in getting past Ben Flack and then Hitan Patel in his 5th group. Sam Bircher likewise had a very, very impressive performance in his defeating Martin McIntosh ultimately. And how about Josh Kane versus Declan Brennan? For me, one of the ties of the round already set there. The favourite for that group will be the winner of that match, but that might just do Carl Sutton in particular a bit of a disservice, who looked fantastic in his group. And Sam Bircher, you can never discount. Another hammer break from Scott Gillespie, who you just feel is warming up, which, when you consider how well he played against John Rowe, is a terrifying prospect if you're a Kian Monaghan fan.
Yeah, the problem Kian has here, I think, is that switch across the table for Scott is paying dividends here, because that's back-to-back great breaks from him, giving himself another opportunity for a break dish.
Red ball's in play.
Just taking his time on this one. He's a little bit of figuring out.
Yeah, it looks really simple, this one, but it's just a couple of blockers in the way of getting to the balls he wants to pot, and a couple of yellows in the way on the route.
Still yet to be a finish off the break in this match.
Yeah, which is a bit of a surprise.
I get the feeling we are on for one here. 18-year-old Kian Monaghan with nothing to go at yet, but he might have a chance in this frame because Scott has just run aground here.
Yeah,
that's not quite gone right.
You could see the previous shot, he wasn't happy with the angle he left, had to play that little cannon. The cannon hasn't come out from him. He wanted the red to move a little bit further. So he doesn't have an open pot. Possibly a double into the right centre. Not sure the double into the left centre's on. I think the yellows are in the way. A double in the left centre, you can see from the overhead, there is a path there for that red. Natural angle for the cue ball as well.
Oh, you're joking.
Little flick off the yellow has helped him.
I can't believe it. I am absolutely lost for words, which in my profession is not a good thing, but
You just can't.
goodness me.
If you're in your chair playing Scott, you just can't ever allow yourself to think, I've got an opportunity coming here. Another brilliant shot. Uses the 8-ball to hold the white, but did it with enough control, knowing that he wasn't going to knock that 8-ball in, which could easily have happened if he got that cannon wrong.
I'm looking at the table thinking of ways you can play safe, thinking that's pretty difficult, thinking what a chance this is for Keane to get himself back into the match before the break. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Scott Gillespie about to go 5-0 up. Get the feeling this 8-ball looks a little bit tighter off the camera than it actually is when you're behind it. Yeah, that's the case. 5-0 Scott Gillespie with 2 of the shots of the tournament in the last couple of frames. Have a bang on this. Absolutely sensational.
A couple of shots following it, brilliant as well. That was excellent from Scott. Put himself in a little bit of trouble, but just brilliant to get out of it.
He goes 5-0 in the lead against Keane Monaghan, and will look to get the job done when we return. Final section of the Ultimate Pool Masters Week 14. Keane Monaghan with a mighty mountain to try and climb. 5-0 down to the great Scott Gillespie. And even the break, which has been a great weapon for Keane so far tonight, chooses now to desert him.
Often the way, isn't it? You've let him a couple of chances go, a couple of mistakes, you get punished for them, and then your break dries up as well, and you think it's all against you. And he's left a really nice table here for Scott to go out for a reverse dish. Looks like yellows is his choice. There are no problems on yellows.
Yellow balls in play.
And we've seen in the last couple of frames what he does when there is a problem. Makes them look incredibly simple. When they're not, should be fairly light work for a player of Scott's ability. When you look back to those last couple of frames, it's the timing of those massive shots that he's balled out. Those 2 big shots, especially the one at 3-0 to go 4-0. At that time, Keane's still thinking it. You know, he sat in his chair thinking, "Okay, I'm going to get a chance here. 3-1, I'm still in this match." But all of a sudden, 4-0, and then you don't touch the table in the next frame, and he comes up with another big shot. And
just sickeners, aren't they?
Yeah, you've gone from thinking I've got a great chance here for 3-1 to being 5-0 down, and it's hard not to when you're in Keane's position. But you come to the table to break off in this frame, and you're thinking, I'm done here. I'm really struggling to get back into this match. Time is against me. I'm playing a great player, playing brilliantly well.
It's a very, very tough score. How many times have we said it in this tournament? For players far more experienced and with far more pedigree at senior level than Keane Monaghan, he's not the first to feel like this. He won't be the last either, I suspect. Tough lessons to be learnt for him in this match tonight. Scott he's like a shark, isn't he? He's probably the best description of him, actually, now that I think about that. When he senses it, he really does know when to put the hammer down and to really just finish a match, doesn't he? We talked about it earlier, his dominating aura around the table when he's on it. But it really does come into effect in a match like this, when it hasn't felt like Keane has almost not stepped up. It feels like Scott's taken the game away from him.
Yeah, he's identified those massive moments, and he's come up with the goods in that situation. There's a real intense focus about Scott when he's at the table. It is really dominating.
It's 7-0. It's 6-0 rather. Yeah, getting a little bit ahead of myself there. 6-0. Mind you, wouldn't write it off in 7-0 very soon, the way Scott's been breaking. Just a tremendous performance so far from him. Really has been a clinic. Let's take a look at our third quarter of the Masters draw. Simon Fitzsimmons, he knows Cian Monaghan very well. Those two from the same neck of the woods. He takes on the Northeast's Gav Robinson. He got past Ronan McCarthy in the last 32. Super matchup, that one, between two really, really good players. And Craig Waddingham, John Chambers, a little bit of a throwback match in some ways. Those two were some of the best players in the world 5-10 years ago. Haven't played as much in recent years, but didn't they look superb in their groups?
Yeah, they really did. Nobody's played better than Craig Waddingham in this tournament so far. He was,
which is some statement when you consider how well some players have played.
Yeah, he was breathtaking at times, some of the pool he played. Once again, that change of going across the right-hand side is working for Scott. Third consecutive break where he's made a ball. Another opportunity for a break finish. A couple of problems at the bottom of the table. I say a couple of problems. He takes yellows, then he can work out the yellows at the bottom fairly comfortably. You might have to take the one nearest the pocket first, and then the other opens up the ball for the pocket for the other ball. Red at the bottom would be slightly trickier to solve, but looks like he is eyeing up reds. So what does he have planned here? Is he going to play a red off a yellow? Even if he plays the red off the yellow at the bottom of the table, it doesn't open up the pocket for that red because the 8-ball's in the way.
Yeah, this is where you just want to be inside that machine mind is Scott Gillespie, don't you? Just to figure out what he's thinking. It's not something I've seen just yet, but he does have a plan.
Yeah, I always say that, you know, your colour set is personal preference. Every player sees it differently, but there's no doubt for me that I was looking at that table thinking he was going to take the yellows, but he's gone after reds very quickly. Normally when a player has a bad ball, and Scott does this as well as anybody, they attack that bad ball as early as possible. He hasn't really looked to. So there's no doubt for me, he's got a plan. He's got an idea of what he wants to do with this problem at the bottom.
Part of the exciting thing is, though, is despite all your many years in the game studying some of these top players as well, with a player like Scott, sometimes you just genuinely don't know what he's got up his sleeve. I have a feeling this shot's about to be quite important, though.
See, for me, yes, that opens up the pocket for the red, but as I've already said, it doesn't open up the shot because the 8-ball's now in the way, so it's still a problem. I wonder if there's just about enough room to get to the potting angle if he can leave the red somewhere in the centre of the table. It looks incredibly tight.
Yeah, if he can play the white almost down the triangle line, I think that's on, you know. Or did he try to go into it there? I think he did.
Yeah, just caught the jaw, I think. He was trying to come 2 cushions and flick into the yellow, which would have opened it up, but catches the jaw, and we're back into what will Scott do in terms of big shot coming up.
Well, we're about to find out if it goes or not. I have a feeling if he can hold this cue ball, this red goes. It's a difficult line to pick. It's a difficult pot from wherever he leaves it. But I think he's going to go red to the left centre, 2 cushions and around. Looks like what he's going for. Oh, I tell you what. He deserved better.
There's some effort.
It obviously can't go because I think he would have accepted a difficult pot.
Yeah, there can't have been enough room. So slightly unusual to be saying it about Scott, but slightly surprised by possibly his choice of colour, but also the way he's attacked this bad ball. Probably didn't go into it early enough.
He's doubling this into the top corner and making us look very silly in a moment, by the way. He's just wide. Just.
Well, it's taken a while, but Cian has an opportunity for the first time since I think he was 3-0 behind, possibly 2-0. And he's probably a little bit shaken out there with what's happened to him.
It's not a dreadful miss though. Where he's left the white is handy. And just see it's tough out there. This is, I mean, I know you've personally been in this situation once or twice in your career, Simon.
Got 6-0 behind.
I wasn't going too into the specifics, but I know it's happened to every player that they've had a match where it just feels like nothing is quite going your way, and you're up against someone who's one of the best players in the world, and it just feels like everything is against you. It is so hard to arrest that slide, change the momentum.
It is, but you have to, and it's one of the things I say about the top players more than anything else is the fact that it looks like Cian's just come awkward again. Is the top players have the ability, they know that whenever they're playing somebody else that's capable of doing it, they can take a 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 finishes on the trot against them, and they're still fresh and ready to go when they get their next opportunity. And it's amazing that they believe that if they can get an opportunity, even if it's at 6-0, they can take it and then they can turn a match around.
Well, he wouldn't back against Scott Gillespie making this. I think he probably takes it on. Let's have another watch of this, shall we? He's tried to play that 2 cushions, hasn't he? No?
No, I think he was
looked a little bit too deliberate. I can't believe he's missed the pot by that much. And the way that he plays has me thinking, I'm totally twisted.
I think that's the thing. He missed the pot to the top left by so far. You are suddenly thinking, and it is Scott Gillespie, you're thinking, is he really come up with something like that? But no, I think that was just a miss to the top left. And
yeah, I think that's, if it wasn't him and he hasn't played the 2 shots that he's already played in this on this evening, I wouldn't hesitate in saying that's a bad shot.
I think all his focus was on the cue ball. Had to get the cue ball round for the 8 ball, which was hard. As Cian misses another opportunity and just hands the frame to Scott Gillespie. Still needs to make this 8 ball, but it's one you expect Scott to get, and you can get the sense that Cian has had enough of this match and just wants to get out of it.
Not taking any chances. And that was unerring from Scott Gillespie. 1 from home, 1 from a place in the last 16. And this is the draw for the last 16. He's looking to place against Arfan Dad in our 4th and final last 16 group. And then you take a look at the players who are still to come next week. Oh, Michael Hill, Sean Chipperfield as an opener is just as good as it gets for me. Tie the rounds. They're a brilliant little group 16 to end things for our group stages, which is a really tight one on paper. They'll want to wait a long time to be in it. They'll all be watching it. Leading to Bono, I think, will be well backed, but Sean Sharkey's got a great record. Jimmy Croxton's performed well on this table, knows it very well. There's the 8 ball, not quite, but he has made a ball. He's got a pretty horrible cue ball there to deal with, but Cian Monaghan's just going to come out and play his shots here. He knows the jig is up.
Yellow ball's in play.
And he made that yellow, I think, to the centre.
Yeah, that was a good pot, especially the frame of mind that we know he's in. Just for a second there, I thought he'd made the golden break. 8 ball got kicked out the way when it was heading towards the pocket. Decent opportunity here on yellows.
Yeah, and I think at this stage you can just play with a little bit without pressure, and we might even see some of the stuff we've been, you know, in the first match especially, we became accustomed to seeing from from Keane. You know, you don't win a match in this tournament 8-0. I don't care who you're playing. That being a really decent player.
Yeah, completely agree. He played some great stuff in that first match. He's played some good stuff in this visit. That's just a roll short though. One more roll and it's simple. Now he's working.
Needs to make this double or he's heading home early. Oh, he's gone for the cut and he's played that really well. Didn't think he'd play that just with having the white on the move, but held it really well with the reds. Nudges the black down towards the pocket, and Keane Monaghan is on the board. He'll avoid the whitewash, which I think would have been tough. Would have been tough for him to take. He'll be pleased to get a frame on the board. Yeah, you can see he's pleased to get a frame on the board, right on cue.
Yeah, I've seen Keane play a lot over the last 4 years, and he's improved every time I see him play. You know, he's got a lot of ability, and yeah, he's going to come up short in this match. But it's so easy to say it, but I really believe it. That you learn a lot when you play matches like this. He's playing against one of the best players around. You know, he's looking at how Scott has punished mistakes here, how Scott has dominated the match and made sure and done everything right to get himself into this position. And Keane will look back at this match at some of those early opportunities and how a couple of them got away from him and think what could have been.
Bang, by the way.
Yeah, and he'll come back stronger for sure. But he may not get another shot in this match.
That wasn't a break, that was a cannon.
Yeah.
Well, since switching to that side, he's found it all right, hasn't he?
Extension called.
Don't think when we see Scott Gillespie back for that last 16 match against Arfan Dad that we'll see him break from the other side.
Yellow ball's in play.
This to book his spot in the last 16. As he becomes the latest star name to run the gauntlet in this Ultimate Pool Masters series. Match against Arfan Dad awaits. Potential quarter-final matchup with the likes of Sean Chipperfield, Michael Hill, Lean De Bono. That when you start playing fantasy and start matchmaking, some of the matches you can make are absolutely mouth-watering.
Yeah, it's just so deep, this tournament, this field. Looks like Scott Gillespie will be into the next round. All the work is done here, just has to work his way through. And he'll be pleased with this. He's had 16 months off, hasn't he? Hardly played at all. Tournament at the weekend. Got him going, got his Q arm going again, and here he is back on TV, and he's played some pretty good stuff tonight.
He has been mustard. A brilliant performance against John Rowe. But in some ways, this final has brought the best out of him. We've seen the very best of Scott Gillespie, the hammer break, the showman shots, the clinical finishing. Scott Gillespie is into the last 16. A deadly performance from the man from Larkhall, who didn't get a break and dish until midway through that match, and then it looked like that was all he was ever going to get. Tough one for Keane Monaghan. Those stats don't quite tell the story. 8 missed pots is tough reading, but in truth that match was over long before they really came to matter.
Yeah, Keane had some good chances early on. He had the first chance in the match, and one that he felt the form he was in his first match he was going to take, but unfortunately he missed a ball and then almost geared himself up on his next opportunity and built up his big shot to win the frame, and that cost him another one. And then to me the other way round in reverse, the opportunity to go, you know, from 3-0 that Scott had to go 4-0, you know, he's come up with an absolutely magical shot, turned that frame around. Instead of being 3-1, he's 4-0 ahead, never looked back, and I don't think Keane ever felt he was going to get back in the match from there.
Amazing performance from Scott Gillespie. Best wishes to Keane Monaghan. Couldn't quite make it through a very, very good opponent. We'll hear from Scott Gillespie when we come back. Well, welcome back for the final time this evening to the Ultimate Pool Masters here on Free Sports. Absolutely tremendous performance from that man right there. Scott Gillespie books his place in the last 16. He'll take on Arfan Dad in just over a month's time, our Group 14 winner. Splendid performance, and I'd like to say Scott joins us now. Scott, a huge congratulations, a big win back on the telly. Just an amazing performance from yourself.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, that was Barry. That was for you, mate. Love you. Barry Lynn, that is. I saw into the match. No, delighted. Obviously, as you say, that's always my first big competitive tournament back. Playing in front of cameras, it's just where I feel at home, and obviously, not being big-headed, but obviously you've seen that there. I've put on a really dominant display tonight.
There were some magic moments as well. We've become accustomed to watching them from you over the years. The shot off the cushion, yellow into the top left. Talk us through that one, because it felt like that really swung the match for you. From that point on, there was never any doubt.
Yeah. No, I was speaking to you, obviously, kind of just before the match against Keane as well, and obviously you just kind of mentioned, obviously you'd asked Keane about obviously his thoughts on the match, and obviously what me and John had won and stuff, and it's okay saying obviously like, oh, people have done this, they've done that, but it's actually performing it. But on the table there, you just get through wee phases where you're seeing things and it's clear as day. And I just fancy getting it, so it's always a good place to be in, you know what I mean? And
with the double that you played the next frame, did you feel more confident playing that? The fact that you'd already made that sort of, that shot off the yellow at the top of the table? Well,
it's just always I looked down at the shot, and it was the only shot I had on. You still have to obviously get it and find the angle, but I was just in that zone where I thought, 4-0 up, I'm probably not going to miss this, to be honest. And always I've come down, landed well, but you still have to take the pots out and get the position.
You're into the last 16. This is a competition we've really been enjoying from ourselves. I know you've been enjoying watching it from home as well. How nice is it not just to be finally playing in this competition, but now to get yourself into the last 16? You can see the names in it and think, yeah, I'm in this now.
Yeah, well, as you said, you and obviously Simon's been speaking about match after week, just big hitters, and obviously I'm watching this, seeing Mellons get through, Jordan, all the top hitters, you know what I mean? I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to be down there playing, but I really want to qualify and get involved, and obviously, because you would feel I've waited like 14 weeks or whatever it is to get my group going, and if I'd come down here and not performed well, I'd have been a wee bit disheartened, but I'm glad to come down and put on a show.
Well, we've certainly missed you, mate. Welcome back, and congratulations on a great performance.
Cheers, mate, thanks.
Simon, one of the best we've seen so far in this tournament, without a shadow of doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. We built him up as one of the best players in the world, one of the best players in the tournament. We're looking forward to his week, and he really didn't disappoint. That was a brilliant performance from Scott. He used the word in his interview there, dominant, and that's how he comes across when you watch him. He just almost owns the table out there, and even if he plays himself into a little bit of trouble, you know he's going to come up with that big shot and work it out. And once he got himself in front, there was just no way back for Keane in that match.
Yeah, tough score, wasn't it? And he mentioned in that interview there, and I think Scott Gillespie is the type of player who's been around long enough now to not take many things personally and doesn't really need any extra motivation, but wouldn't have hindered him, would it, just hearing what Keane had to say? He I think that just helps spice up a match a little bit for Scott. He loves the sense of occasion, he loves the TV cameras being in here, and when you've got someone like Keane, a young 18-year-old who's performed so well and backs himself a lot and thinks, you know, I don't care who you are, I'm taking you out. I think someone like Scott Gillespie just goes, all right then, we'll see what you've got, and I think it brings an extra sense of satisfaction to him just to know that, yeah, he is at that level. There's levels to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, he doesn't need that extra motivation, but if somebody says that they're not going to worry about who he is or his name or anything like that, I'll show you. I can show you what I can do, and he did that. And Keane had that first opportunity, didn't take it, and then Scott just, he just took everything that came his way. The only mistakes he really made were late on in the match. So just so dominant, but the way that he played the whole game.
Yeah, superb performance from Scott Gillespie. Thoroughly enjoyed him. We've got such a good week for you next week. Our first match of the night, Michael Hill versus Sean Chipperfield. You are not going to want to miss it. We are back, same time, same place, next week live on Free Sports as the Ultimate Pool Masters continues. It's bye for now.